for the street also, so. We won't know how much later in the year, but we're not going to construction until next year on that, so. Fred, you asked me about Nikkei House and maybe some of the others. They're not happy because they're and their water Henry King, thank you. I don't know, it just came to me. Seemed to be surprised that the connect. So he's taking so when you take a building and change its use, okay, it was a church and it had one ERU for water, one water connection. That's what and equivalent residential unit, I think is what ERU stands for. Okay, so when you turn it into housing, you have to determine how much water it's going to use. Okay, and so this, he and I have been talking a lot lately, and I haven't shared this with him yet because I just discovered this document. In January of 2023, his fire or suppression consultant did a hydraulic water report. And then his architect then completed this application that said they were going to use 14,000 gallons per day. Okay, so 1,400. 1,400. It's a house, and now they turned it into congregate living with 20 bedrooms and up to 40 people living into it. Okay, so where they're at, right? So this is nobody's ever converted a building like this into housing. So the sewer and water connection fees, 100 ERU is $30,000. Okay, so 1,400 gallons per day equates to 8 ERUs. And so you get credit for the one that you had. So that's 700 ERUs. That's nearly $250,000 for their connection charges. And Andrew, that was new information to him about 2 weeks ago. So we've been going back and forth on this. The finance department, so they submitted this report. We looked at it. Okay, what are similar properties? We looked at nursing homes. Then they submitted a document to us that their consultant did, but he used the wrong provisions in the code and related to sewer connection charges. So Noah wrote a lengthy email yesterday. We've gone back and looked at it as a hotel, a bed and breakfast, a nursing home, and every time we do the math calculations, we come to 8 ERUs and a credit of 1. And so it's really unfortunate. We've reached out to Bremerton because we don't have any congregate living. So it's an estimate. We're trying to look at similar properties. Bremerton does operate one of these, and we haven't heard back from Bremerton what the actual usage on that property is. So I want to find a way to lower it, but I can't really give away, the water connections. So, so if you hear about this, I just want you guys to, it's really unfortunate. Andrew shouldn't have been surprised about it. I mean, his contractor and consultants probably should have shared the information that they had a couple of years ago, and he would have been more prepared for it. And he wants to get people moved in there first of the month, and he's been given a big surprise here.
He had his did you discuss that? I know there's permitting and impact fees and all of that, but I'm not sure.
Well, it would come to this where they're submitting their application because they've got to calculate what they think their water usage is. So we would have told them, you've got to go do, this report, which was on this checklist that they were given, which they did. And they did this report, they submitted the report. So folks involved in the process had just not the guy that had the information, just not the guy that has to write the check, which is really unfortunate.
And when this came to the council, there's been no change in what they been projecting people.
Oh, that's for sure. It's always been. I know people who are living there, and Yeah, definitely. I was curious if, normally, before you start a project like that, you sit down with everybody that's either gonna oversee it, gonna inspect it, gonna design it, gonna plan reviews, like everyone has a hand in it.
So, and you know, it is a different animal because we don't. This is the first time somebody's taken a building like this and done this, so we recognize there's some process improvement we can do to make sure they are aware, you know, yeah, you submitted this report, do you understand what it means? You know, because here we are 2 years later,
And for many, it's a make or break.
yeah, and so there's a second one, I know there's a second, I think it's the Salvation Army is doing a women's shelter near the county, and they're rehabbing a building too. And so we know that there's another one coming, and we just started, so we made them aware.
It's curious,
It's like investigation,
Yeah,
curious what Jim did. with
Right.
Civic.
quite street across from.
yeah, I don't know if it's in the county,
Oh.
and I'm not sure.
No,
That would be
that's
West
gonna
County.
start like figure out how to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another one we could ask.
So what would the county do with Pacific?
That's a good question, that's a good one to look at.
Definitely change the use.
But it's, I don't know that it's been open long enough to have good data. But we'll ask the question, but I know Bremer, we know that Bremerton's got one, and so we're looking to Bremerton, and I'm hopeful we can find something that will allow us to lower it, but I'm just sharing the bad news with you that somebody's really important.
Yeah, but they didn't see how United talk to people. You know, it's funny, it's like there is a fee to connect, like if I build a house on this connection fee, it's like what, 20-30,000? And it seems to me that whatever your water usage, you're paying for the water that you use. I'm not sure why the connection would have to be.
Well, that's your buying into the capital, it's the capital side of it. That's how growth is, remember, every time somebody builds a new house, they impact the system, they're buying it.
It's like $30,000, not quarter.
But when an apartment building pays multiples of that per, yeah, that's right. Uh-huh.
Isn't there an Amici house I thought was in Silverdale? Didn't they,
I thought they were looking to do one in Tacoma or something, but I don't know, I'm only engaged in this process on this one here, so.
And with that document, like, 2 years ago, I'm kind of curious because they set up everything, it just needs the water to turn on.
No, the meter needs to be, they need to pay their connection charges and then we install the meter. So the meter before was a 3/4 inch residential meter. Now it's a 2-inch meter, it's got a fire suppression system. That's got multiple bathrooms, so it's got a much larger meter and it's gonna use much more water than a single family home.
But I'm just surprised that, the communication between the city and them, $400,000, what's that?
It's not 400,000, it's 220-ish, but
200?
yeah, but, okay. They submitted the information to us, it's not, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have raised the flag but the architect and their fire suppression consultant did know this information, because they prepared the report to give to the city to tell us how much water we're gonna use.
Uh-huh.
And
But wasn't the city responsibility to say, hey, your hookup fee is gonna cost you this
when
much?
he ordered the water meter, that's when, and wanted the connection, that's the moment in time we said, hey, we went to,
Right?
it was a couple weeks ago, we went to this document that they submitted, and we said, okay, well, your connection charge is this, and they went,
Well, yeah, because that was a surprise.
yeah,
I had no
And it-
idea.
yeah, and it. Yeah, their consultants probably should have shared that information with them, but like I said, this is a first, somebody's done one of these in the city, so, we can sure make it better, a better effort to communicate these
I'm
things.
interested in following it, so if you just.
Yeah, I will, we're working hard to find a path that gets it to a lower number, but we've got to be able to justify it, otherwise you're never not finding. Okay, last thing, Nick and I attended the meeting with the county courthouse project today. It was about a 4-hour meeting, I sat around for about an hour and a half of it, and it was really the an education process for all three of, I mean, I know those of you that are new on the council, you can feel this pain, that, you know, three commissioners before them started a process on a building, and these guys, are being brought up to speed, and there's sticker shock, and it's gotten a lot more expensive, so phase 0, and which is the parking, and the phase 1, which is the Superior Court, is now 110 million. And the remaining, and they supposedly, according to the consultants, can councilmanically issue bonds and debt service that with refunds. But the remaining 3 phases will take a ballot measure and a tax for over $2 million in buildings. So anyway, 200 million, over 200 million for the remaining 3 buildings. So
Tough stuff.
yeah, so anyway, we were there to support, you know, we're ready to do the development agreement that they need. Because they want to vest that project, all 4 phases will give them a 20-year window, because every year the energy code changes and the, you know, environmental rights. So by doing a development agreement, it allows them to vest and not have the goalpost move on them during this process. So so you'll see, eventually you'll see that development agreement, and then, you know, we've been adamant all along. First thing you gotta do is build parking. You can't be building new buildings without providing parking. Yeah.
So, and swear this was before COVID.
It was.
We had a brief on this.
Yes.
And I would,
Would you, they're just not ready, because they don't, they're just figuring it out themselves.
okay, well, my point was, unless the, you know, plans, I'm not talking about the funding aspects of it.
Yeah.
As much as the plan,
The plans haven't changed, just the cost has gone up.
right, but it'd be nice,
Yeah.
since there was only 3 of us here when that
Yeah.
came through, it'd be nice if they came back with the plan, walk us through it again, so we have an understanding, because I visually can see it, but
We'll make that happen, but they're not ready to do that yet. They're still, the 3 commissioners, I think are still absorbing the information that they got today. So, and the other electeds that were in the room or so. So more to come on that. You know,
I think when they came to us years ago, the price tag was closer to.
yeah, I
one
want
of those, like 50
Yeah.
parts.
I think this thing is more than double.
I think,
And it might have tripled the cost all in all in totality. It's a huge number.
I can't believe they never started. It's.
They can't. I can't remember how many additions the original courthouse has, but it's in bad shape. And the last addition was 50 years ago. It's like a dozen different add-ons to that building. It's in bad shape. Anyway, I've taken enough of your time.
Most of it's.
Yeah. Yeah, we work together, so. Okay, that's all I had to share. I just, with updates and things that, yes,
Or you said yes.
Randy's taking notes, good. And safety. All right. That's all I got. You guys have all kinds of stuff, so who wants to start?
John, we went this way last time, so John, with this.
Wow.
All right, we gotta get it right. Okay, well, then truth be told, my number 1, actually, because I was here to find earlier. I talked about it with the mayor, earlier. So the Greater Tech Chamber went through a program called ELS, which is for entrepreneurial system, but essentially is a program that helps get everybody mission driven and works through efficiencies and that sort. We talked about maybe wanting to bring that to the city, specifically if we can't do it citywide. I think we were both talking with BCC.
Yeah.
And so we got to the mayor. The county has recently gone through something like that, so I don't know if it's a Six Sigma or a EOS or a pick your poison, right? There's one out there program that exists, and I think that would be
So we're,
The downside is we gotta create a budget for it, but we can't go cardboard style shop until we know what we want for that, so. Entrepreneurial operating system, you Google EOS, but it'll bring it up. I don't know if that'd be probably the right one for a city, but it's an example, just like.
so talking, you know. There's improvement we can make in our community, definitely in our communication in DC. And I know many of you guys, whether it be code enforcement or permit processes here lately, we've been sharing a lot in those processes, and I find virtually every time it's fire code, it's building code, it's things that aren't our code that are driving these problems, and many times it's the with your mom and pop operations, you know, examples of the mall or Penn Dev, they're just not equipped, they don't understand the processes, okay? And there's a fine, you know, so we need to do a better job communicating with those types of folks. And, you know, the other rub I get, and to do that though, and take more time with those folks, it takes more time. And the other common complaint I get is from the real builders out there is our permit times are growing, you know, and so if we put more over here, then it's so, but I think there's things we can do in particular. We were just talking about this today, and Nick has been coaching and talking to his team about just that, being more customer, you know, friendly, and from that standpoint. And the county just went through an exhaustive process. And why create, let's look at what they did and what their process improvement and how they went about that. So Nick's open to that, and we were just talking about that, you know, matter of fact today. You know, many of these applicants for their small business, they don't know what they don't know, and they don't, you know, and our challenge many times is they think they're doing this and they're having done this, and these are the questions that they're asking. But really, we should have been asking this questions over here to take them down this path, but they don't know. You know, so we answered this question, you know, whether it be person or email. And so we've got to do a better job diving into making sure they're getting the right questions answered, or they're asking the right questions. And how do you probably deal with this?
Yeah, I was gonna say there's tutorials available from, if the county has one, Pierce County has a great set. And you read that, you realize you need to understand what my connection fees are gonna be. And you realize that I don't get to drive with this construction on like it's international residential code or construction code. Yeah. So there's lots of lessons learned that will sometimes show mom and pop if they're not equipped to move forward by themselves.
Yeah, without a consultant, without a consultant. And there's agencies and consultants don't can communicate the information properly or at all.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're seeing that quite often too. One of the things we also talked about is that we need some cookie for these permit clerks, some cookie cutter tools, you know, and email templates, and just to help better communicate in these emails and these permit processes. And so I've released some resources with our with Josh Johnson, our communications person. He just, in fact, Cody at the chamber came to me recently in a meeting. He goes, I could use a one-pager for how to get a building permit. And I said, well, put Josh on it, and we'll put that on our website. So I put Josh on it. I mean, he got the big picture from the finance department. Of course, they got to check his work because he's not the subject matter expert, but he can create that graphics and this document. And so he just recently, like it was Friday, got to the finance department for their review. And then I've got this, so I'm thinking some of them just like that, you know, to offer some solutions to DCD and so Nick, Nick's going, well, I thought you had to approve those. And I said, I do, because I'm managing that bucket of dollars. And I said, but I'm fairly certain that if we run out of those dollars doing these kinds of things, I'm not gonna have any problem getting additional resources, but I mean, I think it's what money well spent.
Yeah. So remind me, with 5290 and, the permitting timeframes, did Porter choose to include their building permits for that?
I couldn't answer that. I don't know how Nick's.
Then the answer is no.
I don't know.
Then the answer is no. I asked that question on it. Pretty sure.
Okay,
Do
and
that
that,
tomorrow.
yeah, okay, and lots of other restrictions have, with this idea about examining DCE. Is there perhaps a notion that it might become a special revenue fund where they subsist off of the fees that they bring in the door? So now you right-size your fees for the
You would
operational personnel costs.
greatly decrease our fees to do that.
Yeah.
And so I'm not proposing that we do that. I think. Matter of fact, you guys just went through the fees tonight and
There's 27 pages of fees. Including a fee to install your dishwasher.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised to hear it, but, the county went through that exercise and showed that we should be charging $145 an hour for the review.
For what?
$145 an hour for review, workers development services. When that pays for all staff, all operational costs. So,
it does until permit activity slows down and then then you have money to pay for your staff.
well, yeah, so Kitsap County tried to recession proof itself a bit with its special.
I mean, you guys control the budget, not me, but I wouldn't advocate that we make it. I mean, we try to cover costs. That was the exercise that and it's gonna be brought forward in next week's council meeting to increase a handful of our fees, but not, not wholesale. And I don't think there were any huge increases to any of it, so.
It might be worth talking about a little bit, different jurisdictions that have got it. The state has encouraged it to 5290.
So anyway, I acknowledge and Nick and I that we need to be looking to how we can improve some processes there. And I think we're gonna engage with Josh to do some things, some templates and things of that nature to improve process. But the bigger thing is we want to start with, before we go hire a consulting firm, I think the county just did this. So let's see if we can steal what the body of what they did and what's working, what's not working, and try to improve the process and what we'll do. And a piece of it too is, Angela in particular, and Scott, you can chime in on this, at any time. You come in and say, I wanna do, X, Y, Z, and we really should be designing your project for you. And that's what a lot of people come in and want us to do, and there's a tremendous amount of risk for us to do, because we think you meant this, but really meant this, and we recommend you do this, this is how you do that, and you do that, and then you come in and do that, and it's wrong, then we have liability in that scenario, so.
I think there's a very small percentage of folks out there, whether it's a big guy or a little guy who's trying to put an addition on this, probably the ones garage, that are looking for the city to design a building. What they're looking for is, if they're asking, they're looking for maybe some direction. Where do they go to find this?
I hear you, and that's,
just.
yeah.
So we're working.
I
We had that conversation.
hear you.
Now, on the consultants that we pay, how much do we pay for a consultant? Because, like with Beto, Cody still hasn't, got a they haven't talked to them, and those are consultants from our city. But, do you still want those? Do you still want them to be here?
They don't communicate directly with the consultants, and Angela has been in communication, I've been assured she's been in communication with.
Oh, I thought she said for Cody to go ahead and talk to the consultants.
I haven't heard.
That's what Cody told me. And that was 2 days ago, so maybe he has talked, but he says, And I thought that's what they're there for, is to talk to a business person, so.
No, the consultant is processing that application, and to be honest, if we're only using these consultants because of the sheer volume that we're dealing with. We'd rather, it's much more cost effective for us to do it in-house. We're just, we can't staff though to our peak level of business, because the moment it slows down, then I got too many people and we can't afford it. And so, they're very expensive. I mean, some of these contracts were approved and they're $500,000, $750,000, I mean, they're multi-year contracts, but they're really expensive and I prefer not to use them. But I don't, we can't, right now, we've been trying for a month or more to hire another permit tech. We can't find them. It's finding people, whether it be engineers or people that do the plan review or building inspections, they're hard to come by these days.
And so, John, were you saying that, like a software that would help permitting and stuff like that?
We have.
So there's some persons, this isn't, so I'm determining that they have, basically, the consultant that will come in and say, look at your processes and help you understand and give you a framework to create your own processes moving forward, right? Again, EOS 6 Sigma, Kaizen, there's a multitude of them out there that we can look at.
Eliminate duplications. They come in, they look at your processes and then they offer examples and improvements in how you can.
It's short, similar to 6 to 8 months.
Well, we got something on Monday, and it goes on the lines, that was what I was talking about, the permitting and coding. And so it says the easiest way to manage permits, and it's, GoGov online permitting, seamless, fully digital.
So
I mean, is this anything that says,
say that, so what I'm proposing is someone may come in and say, we need a software to do that. We don't know, right? Because what I'm trying to say is, I think we should bring somebody in to help us diagnose that. And then if there is a need for that particular software, they will point us in that direction. You get what I'm saying?
it seemed like it seems like a good software.
So I was one try something like that, literally 2 months off. No, we did, the duplication, we did.
The other thing, some of us have expensive price tags, like the county looked at one, which was gonna be the solution for everything. But the base model is $450,000. And we're like, well, we're gonna start.
I would recommend we start with looking what county just did this body work. So let's go look at what the county did and see if it's relevant to the challenges that we have. And we have permit software. We use the same, all the cities in the county use the same permits.
And that's important because of kind of like permitting requirements too.
I'd just like to comment on this topic that what I was hearing is that there seems to be a need for an ombudsman type role. Someone to sort of handle the developer and help them do the process itself. I don't know how we would possibly staff for it, but I think there is that sort of need because just the interaction is not satisfactory for some people.
Yes, I would comment that a lot of jurisdictions have figured out without an ombudsman position, and I think we can too. I think it's just the surges that have caught us off guard.
It'd be nice to have a list, so when someone comes down to, the small business owner and say, okay, I'm looking around, what do you need? And then they go through the list, and there's not more, so I don't think we really have a checklist that someone comes into the small business and, presents it, so here you go, do this small, go through the checklist and then come back.
And I think that's what you were talking about at the beginning of this, we talked about.
Yeah, we're gonna engage Josh. Josh does really good work with graphics, templates and that kind of stuff, and I think there's an opportunity to help with some of that. We do have checklists, but are they user friendly?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
The other thing that the county did, which might use city is that we put together a webpage of professional consultants, so you can go there and see the menu of surveyors, critical habitat biologists, land use professionals.
That was John's recommendation. I was just wasn't sure that, are you then recommending somebody?
I recommend, and I always put it.
No, we don't, we make it clear that we don't recommend anybody, but it's on.
So maybe we publish a roster of, okay,
Now, that's what I'm saying, if you can put it up to somebody else, we had this conversation, I mean, to like, tell KBA, we're gonna send people your way, but be prepared with this list of peoples, right? Because.
So we started,
Oh, right.
no, it's kind of weighing, feedback a little bit on what Fred said. Because we've been getting stories here that when we find out, at least, you know, the information we're getting is not quite apples and oranges comparison, and I think it's but it concerns me, and whether it's Pondless or whatever, is I come in and say, I want to do this. And DCD may hear this. And so there's a disconnect somewhere along the line, and I don't know whether it's asking more clarifying questions or whatever, because it is very disconcerting to me with Peninsula Beverage, that, you know, one thing they're saying, hey, we just want to do this, and that then you hear the whole project, what the whole project entails. And I mean, you know, my engineering days are 30 years ago when I got my degree, and I'm saying I still would know more than that. So are we not asking the right questions? They're not providing the right information. How do we get that?
he's got an architect that he's employed.
No, I understand that, but you know, it's still diving down, you know, do you understand this thing? You know, on that side of the coin, because, you know, what's that line from, the movie, you know, what we have here is a failure to communicate.
Yeah.
That may be more of a communication issue than a process issue, and which is part of the process, I understand, but, so that's my 2 cents. On this one, we're only
We're gonna move on to the next one.
No, I like the way we're dealing with permitting,
Are we ready to move on to the next topic?
what do you got?
We're
just going one at a time.
We were going.
Well, you're not gonna go through my list, I'll be here now.
I get to go one at a time, and
Last one,
we're going all, Mark says we're going counterclockwise tonight.
We did go clockwise.
Okay, Mark's advocating we go counterclockwise, you okay with that, Eric? Oh, they need you.
So mine's actually a pretty huge one, and it's kind of, I brought that one night with Charlie, back when we were doing Zooms. And we do not have enforcement for downtown business owners, for buildings that are maybe not that appealing. I would like to use a session like this to invite business owners or their reps to the table and have a conversation with them and ask them, what do we need to do to get you guys to move? Not to move, but move on and improving your properties. We are going to have beautiful city hall. We're gonna have a really nice corner right here, and you're gonna turn the city to the corner, and it's, we need to do something to incentivize them to improve the properties. I understand that there's gifting of funds and there's challenges of that. My day job, we cannot work on private property, so what do? We create a grant program where we put public dollars in that. And we improve private property. They apply for it, it's a grant, everyone can apply for it. I would like to see what can we do incentive-wise, legally. I don't know if it is property tax dollars, if we can assist in that way. Legally, but Charlie would come. But I'd like to maybe have her do legwork or yourself do legwork. That way, when we invite them to the table and we can hold a conversation, what are they willing to do? And why are they not willing to do it? Why are they not willing to reface their buildings? I understand it's cost, but there has to be something. that for all these years, they're just not willing to budge. But,
When I was running last time, I did a tour through here, talked to people, and the impression I got was. They do not want to put any more money into these buildings and they absolutely have to.
and,
So
and
that's where the grant program. If we can get that rolling.
incentivize them to do that,
Yeah.
right? And if we declare this, if we declare this, certain area, the zone or whatever it is. And those people are those business property owners are eligible. Invite them to the table and let's see if we can get them to budge. They might think it's, I don't know, I think it's actually inviting us to, on top with them, they might actually show up, might send a rep.
If they want to, it would be matter, and so.
And to Matt, which.
Yeah.
But I just think we need to,
So what I got from this is you want to look for what incentives we can create for building owners downtown. I can say that money isn't the problem for Mansour, it shouldn't be, I mean, he's got plenty of that, I believe. And he owns 60% of downtown.
well, I understand that, but it's almost $5.
Yeah.
Because it's almost a wash, like he's not really having to do. He's not gonna lose money, so it's not a money issue, he's not gonna lose money. It's just, I don't know, I think it's just something that,
Like painting the buildings downtown would be,
there's a lot of things, I mean, it's even more painting as far as like. There's some real structure issues, there's some power line issues, there's,
Take the grass from me again.
yeah, there's, or put gutters, install gutters. Right, there's a lot of real concerns, eyesores. I just see quick fix, I saw it, eight garbage cans lining our sidewalks 24/7. I watch that restaurant going and dump all that trash and shit in. That is just so unacceptable that we gotta chip away at small stuff as well. But as far as my topic, I'd like to try to see,
So I'll put Charlie on looking for what other jurisdictions have done and what kind of grant service programs that we could. Yeah, we go into, then it's gonna come, yeah, and then it will come down to, okay, here's what we can do. Okay, and how many dollars you don't wanna put into that, and then the rub to that too, though, is then we gotta administer those grants. Too, so there's, okay, I'm just, so, okay, fine.
Please.
Questions about that, how are we? Limited, how could you limit it to the downtown corridor? Port Orchard is bigger than the downtown
Yes.
corridor. What if there was somebody up on Bethel or somewhere else within the city that also was interested in improving their building?
Yeah, in the future,
How would we handle that?
in the future, we can keep moving.
Sounds like we almost, I think it would.
It's big.
Well, and the merch,
John Street, Main Street program will do the same
and
thing.
it'll get us to state dollars.
Main Street actually will make you get fined in your zone. So it can only be X amount of square blocks, so I don't remember the.
I will say, when I first came here, the first thing I did, I got Mansour to do what he, I actually wanted him to tear my stand, and I but he did. And so he did what he did to it, and it looks better than it did, but that's all he did.
That's a big job now.
So, but I've met with him a couple of times, and he's not a developer, he's not gonna,
He's a holder.
he's a holding company, and so that's, municipal projects take a decade or more sometimes, and that's why, at least in my mind, I focused on this quadrant over here to take a bite out of downtown. Under the hopes, we build the community, it's at bank headquarters, the community center, then somebody believes in the division or downtown and builds the parking garage and the residential. And then he's assembled 60% of our downtown. Somebody, I think at that point in time, somebody will write him a check that's a developer, because he's got the water side of our downtown.
I don't think we talked about that, and I don't think we've got soil to tear it down.
Good, our code will allow you to go 3 stories on the water side, you can go 5 stories on the hills.
Structurally, no.
Oh, the buildings you can't remodel, you're taking them down and, I mean, we're going, bank's going 3 stories, we're going 2 stories. I mean, it's still, you got a pin pile down to the,
Yeah, exactly.
But 5 stories, would you be taking, a view away from homeowners?
we actually put a fire truck up down Bay Street back when we passed that code. At 75 feet and up on Kitsap Street, you can't see.
And 5 is 4 is the elevator, that's what you're talking,
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, well, I remember, like the Johnsons got the whole neighborhood together and they put, this was quite a few years ago, because they talked about putting, I don't know how many stories
5 stories.
on the other side. And, the people said, no, you're gonna be blocking our view, so I think that would be quite controversial.
Well,
Yes, we have to divide.
Yeah, that's,
So that's already in our code, 3, you can do 3, but anyway.
That's what.
So is there, okay, so I'm spending city resources, is there 4 more of you that want this, Charlie doesn't work for free. Is
yeah,
this,
that was my point here, it says, how can we work together
we
with
got 2, Scott 3,
That was my thing.
so.
Yeah, so we gonna go and rank them?
Well, no, I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna go do it, I mean, but I want a consensus of
What
which
she would
I-
be doing is, she'd be basically doing a little survey of other.
Yeah.
Other cities, of what they have done to incentivize.
Yeah.
There's no enforcement, we have to try.
Yeah, we can't
We have
force
to try-
anybody
we have to try something.
unless they're dangerous.
Yeah,
Buildings
we
dangerous.
ran out when we tried to look at the abandoned building. You know, we didn't, we started on that.
We'll research programs and then from there, it's gonna be, part of the mid-year review, whether or not. There's dollars to put in, to put into a program and what that looks like.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have them informed with that.
Yeah.
Tangent, because I know John's working on this. So, because I do agree with Mark that what we do for one, we do for all. Our city's larger. So if we're kind of zoning this to a certain area, which I'm not disagreeing with. The program that John, I think you're working on is the Main Street. What does that time frame look like for that?
Ooh,
Doesn't,
couple of years.
Yeah, you're right. It's a more.
I see where we,
Yeah.
but I see where we can dovetail this in together,
Right,
on that side of things.
and we can start planning. And we get it,
You're not disagreeing with that, so I can support that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
What's yours? What's your?
Mine was how we work together.
I'm sure you got another one.
No, I got another one. Oh, well, I just wanted, to, and I also did permitting, that was my first one. I just wanted, so we can go quicker, so the businesses are not spending so much money or just being vacant and costing them a lot of money. So I'm glad we're working on that. So I do have one that I thought might be, we don't really use this, but it was we could have, but using their time. And we might not use it that much, but it would be nice to have it just in case, someone comes, and talks. Yeah, public comment, just view, and it might not be used that much, but instead of just saying no, or someone doesn't wanna talk and they want someone else to talk for them, that they can just give their time. Cause sometimes it's intimidating up there, you're talking on the same,
I
topic.
think that would be difficult to administer.
Oh, well,
It's and then you get somebody like Gandalf, who gets, and then you got somebody in the audience, and then. Sometimes there's issues that come before us, and we could have somebody, we could have 6 people.
I'm gonna bring 10 people.
And one of them yielding their time to that person, and they're talking for 20 minutes.
well, you can also have 10 people talk,
So I would advocate against that, but it's your guys' meeting.
And my comment with that would be, we allow people to have 2 bites of the apple for 3 minutes. And also we encourage them to, if you have a written statement, that you can give that to the clerk for dissemination. So my feeling on this is, we've done what we needed to do with our changes, so I don't support it. Really fine.
I mean, yeah, it's just, we never really done it, but I just, to have it, I think would be kind of nice, but that's what I wrote down.
Not intended to be, okay, we've had a couple of like show up here that have. Speech impediments or things like that, and they struggle. And as much as I wanna say, why don't you have the person that came with you, read your letter, obviously.
Well, first submit it right.
Yeah, I was not gonna say that, but
When I testified in Olympia, you get 1 minute.
And they've done that.
And they turn your microphone off, or they turn your Zoom off, and then you get 1 minute.
That's that.
So you gotta be concise.
Yeah, well, what's different than a small town?
Well, yeah.
We don't need to be.
2-3 minute lines.
Well, piggybacking on what she said. I think the council could tweak the public comment if we agree, but we have 4 votes here. For example, at the last meeting, there was someone at the very beginning who brought up, why can't you take the whole down? And go back up? And I thought it would be nice if we could have just commented like, sir, we need to join co-op, different merchants behind you, and that's how we would approach it, because we don't have the buildings. But by the time we could talk for, good of the order. So it's sort of like, is there a way, and I don't know, if, that we could
You did
Yeah,
it
that's-
one time.
that's the same.
What do you call that?
comment.
Well, one thing we could, and Mark brought this up is, we, back, when Fred and I first got to city council, we used to require people to identify themselves and where they lived, and we were told, you can't do that. And we can't make somebody, put their name on a sign-up sheet, but we could offer a sign-up sheet and they could, put their name and their address or their email address, and if you wanted to reach out back to that person later, you could get that, information from Randy, because it'll be on the sign up.
like a bird topic.
So,
Good, we had a short meeting.
I'm
So-
sure Brandon's gonna put something together.
so we can do that, but we can't require them to do it.
No,
If they're wanting to offer, so we can say at the beginning, we've got a sign up sheet, if you're looking for somebody to get back to you.
We can't require, and I can understand maybe they're not requiring, their address, but their name should be.
Well, they're gonna give their name.
Oh.
That is, well, we asked for it, please state your name for the record, so we know who you're talking to. But we were advised, we couldn't require that other information. If they want to offer it, they can, but,
Our sign up sheet, that will at least give it to it, but I don't think anybody wants to have a forum where we're engaging with people. Yeah, the diets.
So we're a simple sign up sheet with an email address.
Yes.
Call
Yeah.
them, if they fill it in, right, if they don't fill it in, that's their choice, we're not forcing them to do anything. We do have time to get back to them. Such as the.
What was that one?
It's the same thing.
well, hold on, for public hearings, we do that. We just don't do it for a public, and I'm hearing consensus that. you
Yeah, I
guys would
think
like that.
if we could add another column that says if you would like contact, check this box, because people might put their email address, but they're not asking for anything else. And I just wanted to also clarify that a lot of what they ask is really on staff to clarify, people that have come in with questions about utilities, mailings and stuff, and so that would be something that we would reach out to, that would be, contact staff. What I had mentioned to you is that I believe in my years of seeing this from both sides, is that it's entirely appropriate if you get testimony to ask clarifying questions.
Yeah,
What is it you meant when you said, oh, well,
I like that.
but that's not a way to protract the discussion.
It is,
Nor should we.
yeah, we should be listening,
Yeah,
and not have back and forth with the
Right.
public comment.
but if we need to have them clarify something, because
For more
they use
understanding.
communicate words or whatever. That's appropriate.
Okay, I think we need to watch the rabbit hole though,
Alright,
because
that's.
well, this. The recent ones that we've gotten, which have been, I'm gonna be blunt, fairly hostile. And. We could go down a rabbit hole with them, asking for comments about specifics about projects, and I think that's a dangerous one to go down.
And we were working with that particular gentleman from the last meeting, we were already working with them. And
Right, but I'm saying is if we start engaging them for.
you shouldn't have been in that scenario.
That's where we're asking for clarifying comments, we would be engaging. I'm saying, I think that's a dangerous path to go down.
I agree.
I thought it went well. After you did that, we got some more information and I liked it. I was impressed.
Well, maybe we should get consensus on this, because I always thought that was appropriate. If you don't understand what I'm trying to tell you, and you consider that testimony valuable, then maybe. you
It's
should
not
try-
testimony, it's public comment.
I mean, but not, then you should try to make sure you understand.
Yeah, I think we're clarifying afterwards, not during the public comment.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was talking about. That's what I heard you say.
Clarifying afterwards, like, comment period two. What do you?
No, what I'm saying, okay, so I didn't watch the gentleman's comments, so I'm kind of taking this from memory. But, you know, in essence, he said, you know, this is what's happening in my building, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's not exactly what was happening at his building. And so if we start getting in that comment period, back and forth, without having specifics from us, we can have a totally different picture, but we haven't had the chance to do our homework or due diligence. Because our due diligence is policy and financial. It's not to do our staff's, you know, job. And so they're over here and we're keeping them out of the picture. Well, somebody's in here and we're talking about, well, tell me more about, you know, why you know, that your steps are, you know, into your building, you know, that they're not ADA compliant. And he's given an answer and this could be a rabbit hole. going down.
Yeah, so,
And Charlie pointed out too, these cases where it's code enforcement, of course, that's a form of legal action. And it's not appropriate at all for us to be engaging in those processes.
yeah, so I'm not talking about asking questions, like, I think the example. If they say something and I don't understand what they just said, I might ask them to rephrase what they just said.
I think that's very appropriate.
I think it helps.
I'm just moderating the meeting too. I mean, because we can't force you to clarify something that you understand that we don't. For example, council members can say, yeah, okay, yeah, helps me clarify. Okay.
Well, then put it on the mayor to be the facilitator. And, you know, if there's a question that's out of bounds, then the mayor would ask the mayor to say, please.
Well, you're gonna make the point of order.
Well, I'll do it as much as possible, but, you know, at the same time, it's, you know, you are a facilitator according to our rules.
Okay, so the outcome from this is we're gonna put create a sign up sheet and hopefully folks will use it and we'll have, if you have a need to get, you know, want to get a hold of somebody after the fact, about something to, then we'll potentially have that information if they wish to share it.
I'd like to ask you to make a comment about it.
Yeah. At the beginning of public comment, that we have a sign up sheet, and.
Yeah, just make sure that you're.
And I can, yeah, and I'm probably what I'm gonna do if people signed up, instead of being random about who I'm gonna call on the names on the sign up sheet in order that they're on there, and then go to the generals and it's kind of, I think I'll facilitate that, so, okay. Brett?
Okay, I'm gonna bring up the topic nobody else will. And as you know, I've had a concern about homeless, but the question that I have is, where do we want the homeless to go? And the example I'm thinking of, there are some young men who are not in the full facilities. They hang around in downtown. Obviously, we don't like them to hang around at a store's entryway. And I get it, because I might be a merchant sort of, but what I'm struggling to figure out is like, where do we want them to go? Now, I know that we offer, for example, hotel stays under certain circumstances.
We had it for a while.
We don't have to start that, but we have really.
We don't have an agreement anymore with the hotel.
Oh, no, it's sold. Oh, okay. All right, so we don't have that option, but I was thinking that wouldn't be appropriate, but it's like, you know, we could say on one hand, we want to go to Bremerton. But I don't think that's really, don't be specific.
So I have some timely information on this. So I met Friday when we didn't have power, heat, because I'd say it would be like a month ago, with folks from Salish Behavioral Health and the real team. And what they shared to me, so one, to Fred's point, unless unless a business trespasses them, it can be in any public space they want to be, provided they're not committing a crime, okay? There's capacity right now for anybody, there's a process to get into Pacific House. I think, is it called Pacific House? Pacific Building. So it's about 48 hours. That's what the real team does, and they were dropping off information to me so that I can get it to Christine. Because Christine, as a code enforcement officer, is the point person for the city, and other than a police interaction. You know, if somebody is gonna, calls and says, I see homeless people on this property over here, whether there's a neighbor or whatever, makes a, complaint about it. If it's private property, then there's a process for that. If it's public property, but it's a different process. We have processes to deal with folks when we get complaints. And the real team, this is what they do, is outreach. The real team.
Is that the county?
Counts, we're funding, Salish Behavioral Health too, with some of our dollars that we got from the opioid settlement, too. So there are folks doing outreach. You gotta wanna help though. If you don't want help, we can't force somebody into treatment. We can't force them to take, my wife works in mental health. We can't force people to take their medication. And, this just, they can't. So, there is capacity up there at the Pacific Building. I was told that. on Friday.
50%.
Yeah, but people have gotta want, to want help, follow the rules.
And it's not zero barrier zone.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah,
It's, no, that's a good avenue, and that's good to hear, but it's like, the two that I'm thinking of, for example, it's like they would not. You're not taking the events, it's like, I guess the only thing is to report them when they go to jail.
well, the thing, but there's nothing to report unless it's a crime. I mean, you can't, it's not a crime to be homeless.
No, it's just that if you're taking up a space and if they're loud and if they're.
You haven't described anything that's breaking the crime, committing a crime. It's a nuisance as well.
Okay, all right, so I think that's exactly how, what I'm wondering is like, where do we want these people to go to the civic building? Well, we don't want them downtown, and if they don't wanna go to the civic building, or they can't even. I mean, are there parks that we can direct them to? It's like, we don't say veterans park. But
We used to say veterans park?
don't take me literally. I mean, we used to say somewhere else, but not here.
They can go anywhere they want to go.
Well, I know, doesn't the place, it would be kind of nice if we have like a pamphlet, because I know there's lots of places where people can help, but I don't know what's off the top of my head. But and the police have, you gotta want to get help though, but I know there's a lot of resources, but I just don't have it, where
Look,
resources.
our police department also had, in particular, Sergeant Main is one of the biggest ones out working this issue, and so she's got stuff for
Yeah.
real teams working with her. And where I found the disconnect was our code enforcement officer, and just yesterday, I met with them on Friday. And I brought her that information, but Fred, I don't have a good answer for you because there isn't. As
Maybe
far
we
as,
should get that information for us too on email, so we have it, so when something arises, we know exactly how to help someone.
I don't think that's your role, right? As a council, if you did it all,
I'm not trained to do this.
I don't believe that you should be, if you want to do that as a private citizen, that's great, but that is not something you should be doing as a city.
I think
There's
quite a lot
someone who
of,
wants information from us, isn't,
You can do that as a private citizen. Yeah, we have police officers, we have trained professionals that are,
okay, then I guess we would call the police.
if they're committing a crime.
Well, let me.
but
And
Fred, what you described is probably people that aren't looking for help necessarily. Or they have criminal records and they don't want to go at risk of getting arrested trying to enter a specific building. Or they're antisocial and they just want to live in the woods and be left alone. Yeah, they come out of the woods to get supplies and perhaps services or whatever, but. We can't make people, do these kinds of things, especially if they're not violating the laws.
We used to until the second,
Yeah.
and we can have better replacement for that.
So just a topic, to piggyback on Fred's hot topic, but we have a group of folks that live up here on the hill, the hill. What? Above, what used to be Dairy Queen. I know it's, like Darby's, yeah, and they complain.
Oh, okay, the residents.
Yeah, the residents, about the, a lot of cars and the kids gathering down there by the gazebo. And oftentimes we hear about donuts and things like this.
Last night.
And we got to a point, or they got to a point where they're so frustrated, they don't call 911 on these things. And oftentimes if they did, those kids aren't really breaking the law. In a lot of cases. How is that dissimilar than what Fred's talking, as you got some guy in town and meltdown in front of the business? We handle it.
Well, I mean, they're having a meltdown in some psychotic break. I mean, you're gonna probably call 911 because you want to get them to help if they can.
So that would bring Dawn in.
Yeah, who would then turn them over to that person over to the field. They've got a 24-hour line.
So my question would be, but ask, do you not have a code around noise ordinance after a certain?
We do, it's difficult to enforce, because,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we gotta catch them. It's gotta catch them.
Technically, yeah, right, so.
yeah, because the calibrated noise meter.
I just need to make sure that some of that is illegal.
Fred and I live on the city. I can tell you, those kids, when they leave there, 9 times out of 10, they race right up the hill. It's in front of my house too.
And then they're going to fake it.
I would say, something I hear.
It's a quarter mile, and show you the tire marks on the street.
Yeah,
What are the enforcement?
it's not just in our,
It's my.
but in our police officers, we can see it happen.
I'm school 429.
All right. Scott,
Well, I wanted to, one of the comments I sent you was communication and it was really.
Just took mine.
What's that?
You just took mine.
So instead, maybe where I'll go, is I'd like to see more art installations in the city. I'd like to see, and you've talked about this before too, if we could look at an arts commission, what that would take to get up and running. I was in Bend last summer, doing some mountain biking, spent some time in there. And, they have a route you can do for roundabout park. So they've got this little travel path that you can do with your car, takes you through different roundabouts with different art installations. And I saw a couple of those, and I thought they were really cool. And so I think that we should embrace something like that and something more, especially along our waterfront. The Nike installation, if you want more like that, I can cobble that together in my garage. But I think if we could look at some really nice art installations.
the community center is gonna happen. We are.
Yeah,
I mean, it's.
but it's.
You're talking about on the pathway too.
I really gotta push back on a commission because I don't have staff to manage another commission.
Well, that's fine, I mean, the idea is art, and how do we get there?
I think.
And none of this is public, in the public right away.
Yeah,
I think we've done, I mean, Tremont, I mean, we would say it's art, I mean, landscaping is a
no.
form of art. I mean, I think
The game.
our standards now require us to do things differently than, unfortunately, our downtown isn't pretty. In many aspects, I mean, we've done some things with the lighting, the lighting this last year, we're gonna, our community center is, when it's built and from the ground, the plaza and I will say, this just popped into my mind. We're having a heck of a time. I'm not certain we're gonna end up and get our overwater structure. I mean, we're really, so the can't remember which federal agency it is for our shoreline permit. In the last 18 months, they've changed the regulations and moved the goal line on us twice. And
We don't have a vesting.
we're researching that. Charlie didn't think so, but Jennifer's a land use expert, not Charlie. And that's Nick and I told him, well, wait a minute, we submitted our application here, but I don't know that vesting applies in the federal realm. And so we're really, we might end up losing that. So, and what might be the outcome is, we want to move the shoreline back and do habitat restoration. And we might have to leave that crappy little craft wall there and leave it alone. Because they're treating our habitat restoration moving back as a brand new seawall instead of a habitat restoration. They're just looking, in our opinion, looking at it wrong. And we might have to just leave it alone. Our shoreline, which we don't want to do. Because it's becoming really challenging to permit moving. Anyway.
So that's the art.
You guys were talking about the communities that are auto, they're just triggered, and I'm just like.
Go ahead. Yeah, come back to that. Yeah, okay, thanks. So, one of the things that we talked about, you know, whether it's not Nike or whatever, you know, and that is just as we do projects, you know, how do we make them more visually? And I'll give you a perfect example. Where's it up on Johnson Road out of Townsville with the new roundabout in it? I mean, it's just friggin' gorgeous with our, the reason I bring that up is I was, did a bike ride on Sunday. And I went through some small towns around the coast, and they had their roundabouts were like literally pavers in the road. I was surprised people didn't just drive across them, to be honest with you. And it was like, not only was it poor traffic control, it was a perfect place to put our, so I know, you know, as we've been looking at, Blueberry and Salmonberry, that we take a real hard look. I know we talked about it and we looked at the plans, but we double and triple check those to see what we can do to make them aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
That was where.
And I think we got it. I don't think art needs to be concentrated. I think it should be dispersed throughout the city, particularly with focus in the city centers, you know, Fred Meyer area.
In particular, as we design parks, the roundabout at London and Bethel is gonna be big. And you know, and so is that one in Paulsville. It's money, you know, that was, I don't know what that piece of artwork cost, but.
Oh, is
I
that
wouldn't be
one
sur-
that also goes
I wouldn't be
down?
surprised if it was $1 million.
It's gorgeous.
But it's gonna be expensive, but there's probably an opportunity to do, you know, something, the state did the roundabout that's in the realm of,
Loose
you know, but it's functional.
What happened to the painting?
That's exactly where I was gonna go. We can't get permission. And we're it's the state's roundabout. So I'm not gonna talk on camera about what we're thinking about doing, so anyway.
Yeah, but I don't think the city has to do the art. What if it's made available for a private organization?
It's just managing that.
Yes.
And what, you know,
They pay for it, they just.
somebody thinks that Nike thing is art. You know, and so what are we gonna do?
It's a shame.
Yeah,
I think,
okay, let's
Yeah. Yeah.
let's have one conversation here, John.
yeah, I just wanted to. I love the idea of an arts commission. I hear the mayor as well. I don't know if it can be, if we don't make it a commission, can we make something that falls underneath the council? So that we have a group that helps oversee those things.
But anything you guys need, I have to put staff to your meeting.
This is important, I like that.
So I hear that, so right, so again, maybe it's just that we find a framework.
Yeah.
That we can operate within, because again, what I'm trying to say is. That group's goal should be fundraising, right? And I have seen the art community do amazing things in a lot of different places. And I think you're absolutely on the right track. I think a commission, well, I hear, I also hear you and understand what you're trying to say, but I think if we can put something on a work plan to see what we could do, maybe we have a buddy artist at the city here who would want to help. Right, we've got you guys, but you know, who would like to help.
Yeah, I know other people do it.
Just, again, when you have a commission like that, it also opens up resources to bring those dollars. Again, I'll look to our friends, across the bay, who created, an arts district. Right, so the Bremerton Arts Commission went and lobbied with the state and got the downtown district recognized as an arts district. That also now brings additional funding to the city, so I think it's a two-way street is what I'm trying to say. And I'm on board with this.
Okay.
For a way forward, I don't know.
Is there consensus of that we want to explore?
Well, yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I was thinking like. Like poetry level day, you know, I mean, that shipyard have to have massive acres over there. And we get redone and thrown out or something super cool. I mean, it can't cost that, you know, it'll cost a lot, but they have to have that stuff over there. You know, there are times about.
I think, is that you that brought up that?
Yes.
I'll kick you later.
So I'm gonna go back to the one that got sold. I thought we were gonna go for.
No, I passed it on.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. And that's communication. I think that a lot of our issues, that we hear back are from, you know, we have such good messaging, help, a great story. Unfortunately, a lot of our projects in the past several years have been infrastructure based for, you know, and people don't see that because they don't see where it's flowing downtown, if you get my drift. And I think that, you know, I'll put it on the finance committee to see if we can find that body. We talked about it, you know, ad nauseum. And, you know, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and we're not able to respond to control the narrative right now. And the narrative right now is, you know, about permitting, it's about a lot of different things that I don't think necessarily come out of DCD where their focus should be. And I really would like us to see about getting somebody half-time, full-time, in here finally to manage this, because we're becoming a big city, and we need to control that narrative. So that's my number one.
I would advocate, you know, we're utilizing Josh, I can utilize Josh more, if there's something more you want out of that. There's no, Bremerton is 4 times our size, and they do not have a staff person doing those. Gets Up County has a communications person on staff. I don't have an office space for somebody to do that. And I don't need another employee in management, to be honest.
Well, I understand that, Mayor, and I respect that. But in the 8 years that I've been here, you know, we've been correct in the things that we do, but we've also been pilfered in the paper, we've been pilfered online, and quite frankly, I'm tired of that. And we've got such good news to tell. It was the last council meeting, I'm sorry you missed it, because it was a love fest. You know, anything from listening to the staff reports, the presentation by the police chief. I mean, it was like, wow, you know, we should get this news out there all the time, things that are happening. And, you know, maybe part of Bremerton's problem, well, they don't have a PAO, I'll leave it at that.
No, don't stop it. Remember, you showed me that pamphlet, remember that, over coffee?
Yeah, I did.
That's a huge,
It came out in the Port of
correct,
And
and that's pretty, informative, a lot of information it has. I didn't even know about it, Jay shared it with me, it has I mean, departments, phone numbers, and addresses, it has, not just for city of Orchard, I mean, it has a whole section for city of Orchard. And then Kitsap County has all the information in them for there as well, that kind of stuff is.
It was gold mine. And by the way,
Yeah, it's huge.
Scott, so when he comes back, then, you know, hopefully they come back to me.
So I've got an idea here to maybe help Josh tell our story. And it involves paying Josh to be here, you know, which is gonna cost, I mean, it's $100 an hour is what we're paying him, but having him, whether maybe he attends our council meeting. And so that he's getting this story firsthand, or yeah, it's what we're paying Josh.
I'm not surprised at that.
It's consultants on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not gonna bring it in-house, it's all right in us.
It costs a heck of a lot.
Exactly.
It costs a heck of a lot more than that, because I gotta provide benefits.
And
How much is the contract for,
25,000
well,
a year.
sure.
Yeah, we don't have.
That's $750.
Here with me.
No, it's not. We pay him,
good for 250 hours?
yeah, we pay him as, you know, as we have projects. So I pay him for each project that he does.
How many hours did you burn last year?
Last year, so remember, it's buying the budget. So we were under budget we were 20, I'm guessing, we were a few thousand under budget in the first half of the biennium. And we spent more than 25 in the second half of the biennium. So we spent in the biennium darn close to the $50,000 in the last budget. And so we have 50,000 in this budget, and he's been doing quite a bit of work. I won't be surprised if I'm asking you at the mid-year review for a few more dollars to add to that contract.
At a minimum, I like the idea of having him come to council meetings, and the reason being is that way he's not getting it secondhand, and he may have ideas on what needs to be pushed out there instead of waiting for staff to say, hey, would you push this, or it gets lost in the feedback. So I will say, as a starting point, I appreciate that, and if we can move that way, then we'll see where we go.
But that's what
I'm sorry, John, he was going first.
Well, so then it also brings you back to the workout, right, the strategy. And where is the strategy? Maybe it's that we need him to be, and we have an annual strategy session with him. No, that this year we have X, Y, and Z, and we can be lining up the paper, come talk to us about this, because there are things that we can proactively, if we have a strategy, manage our communications as well.
And I would agree with that, and that comes out during our meetings a little bit, I mean, you know, over time, and we're done. I'm sorry, Fred, you had a comment.
I was just wondering if we wanted to pay someone to really sit through our meetings.
That's what I'm saying, we will eat up that contract really fast if I'm paying him. But I like almost John's idea here better. Let's just bring Josh to a work study and talk to him about what do we want to see?
So I would say yes, but there are nuances that go on in our meetings. There are meetings that have been in person are much better than the meetings that were in Zoom. And
So maybe he watches the meeting, or at least watches the recording,
I watch-
because there's stuff he doesn't.
still gotta pay, well,
But he can fast forward through what's not relevant.
So I did back of, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, so what part of the meetings, if you can narrow it down, what part of the meetings, from what I gathered earlier, and answer my other question, are you looking for Josh to gather information from? Earlier on, you said you have all of our department heads here giving us all this good, positive stuff that we're not getting out to the public, maybe in the newspapers or social media stuff. Is that the part of the meeting you'd like to see them, sit through, or?
I think, you know, that's a good question, Mark, but it's sometimes getting the nuances of what's being said. And maybe that's part of just having him watch it, or, you know, come board week, you know, for us. But when I look at our meetings, I mean, this is part of the frustration I think the public has. is, we go through anywhere from 50 pages to 200 pages on a Friday, from a Friday to Tuesday to get ready. And then we go through things, in an hour, blow through, five items plus a consent agenda. But sometimes we have clarifying questions that we get additional information on, whether we pull up the consent agenda or questions that we have, or the department heads, bring information up. And I just feel that somebody listening to this, from an objective point, may have questions or be able to amplify both the answers or where the city's headed. Perfect example for me is the Marina Pump Station. Now, this project's been going on for 4 or 5 years,
18 months.
well, 18 months. 18 months on the building,
Yeah,
but it's been about 5 years where we started at 6 million, to 13 now. And I'm just saying is, there's a lot that's happened down that pathway.
okay, I have a fresh.
It's just, I think it's about time it's worth to communicate.
A better use, I think, of Josh's time would be, not everything on the agenda is usable, but at least making sure that he's looking at the agendas and watching elements of the meeting that are relevant. But most importantly, because the things that aren't published that we many times celebrate are in the staff reports, and making sure he's watching the last 10 or 15 minutes of a council meeting to capture those nuggets and go, oh, I need to follow up with the police chief or Dennis Ryan, because that's something we need to share.
So does he put this stuff out, is he our PR guy for the city government page?
Okay. Josh doesn't post the content, okay, so he and I and staff talk about the things, and many times it's Josh is prodding us too, because we're in our world doing our work and, and I'm running to fire. And Josh was really good about, okay, guys, we haven't talked about this in a while. Are there any updates? So he'll send myself and Dennis in particular, because a lot of these projects, Dennis is managing, or his team is. So we go Dennis and Nick, so, what's out there, what's coming. So he's really pretty good about that. And it's just, sometimes it's just us getting the information, but I think having him engage more in our council meeting could feed some of this process for better communication.
And tell him exactly what we want too, like, get a list, put this out there on the, city government page.
Yeah, so when those things, then from there, Janine, typically, sometimes it's Brandy if Janine's not available, is the one who puts it on social media and puts it on our webpage. So Josh doesn't have the keys to our social media page or our website, he's just creating content that's then put into those vehicles, yes.
I like what I'm hearing there, but I also like John said, with bringing Josh in here for a work study session and letting us talk about what our goals are, what we'd like to see from our public information officer, but also then forming a strategy on how we're going to move forward with that information, how we like him to proceed. I think it will benefit our city and our citizens hugely.
Yeah, because I'd like to caveat that too, right? Like, I think there's ongoing business and things that just information that needs to get out. But I'm a real sadist, right? Like, I like to get in Port Orchard group on Facebook and read the comments. Right? And when you get into it, man, you get into some stuff and it gets thick in there. And I do it very regularly on purpose, right? So, because you gotta know what the people are feeling, right? So one thing I want him to do is find a way to engage the 18,300 people that we have to love our city.
Okay, just not on Facebook.
However, he's gonna do it, right? Like, I think it's gonna happen of it, but it's going to change that narrative. Because even on Port Orchard, I think they're worthy of good things.
I think John's talking about mining fees that he can.
Correct. So, and I don't know if that looks like John's strategy.
It's a masochist, not a sadist.
Sorry, yes.
Would it, I guess that being a profession, but even a profession would be pretty good at like a. We don't need. Like a one-page newsletter that goes out. That could cover, I don't know, 4 topics. You know what I'm saying, okay, that way, and send out email, because everybody, why was an email? That's how they find out about the cleanup. I saw social media, it's why they got shocked, they got 4 mattresses, a box spring, a freezer. And it was actually picked up,
They had to pay for it.
did they? How that's.
Somebody got tagged, you might even.
Yeah, one of those you get picked up, you have to pay, there's so much per.
Yeah, that's great.
So, well, at least it didn't have a side.
Focus, they're focused.
But if you did a newsletter, that covered 4 topics, I'm just throwing it out there, whatever, I mean.
You gotta come and tell us when you recommend, right?
Yeah, how much it, right, that go out.
But we don't do it.
Well, it's not Josh's time, I did a news, like 4-page newsletter, I used to do it. Problem is, I'm not the one writing the content, you know, it was my directors, and I've taken them away from doing their work.
The 4 pages
That's-
is my first summary, I said 1 page.
That's not the intent, but when I wanna go back to one thing, and this is, there are building blocks to every project that we have, I don't want. Whoever it is, Josh or whatever, being in a tail end Charlie. Sometimes you need to know the information over a period of time, and that's what I'm trying to get at, you know, on that side of it.
So they've seen us progress through a project and understand
You know,
the
and
painstaking time that we took in deliberating over next.
99% of them aren't paying attention to it.
anyway, yeah, I think we go this one.
So here's
Well,
here's what I got for takeaways from this, so,
Well, hold on.
okay, alright.
So one of the things that I think we can do a little bit better is use our webpage and use some banners and scroll, and you could scroll 4 different issues in, you know, and, one minute, maybe.
We can try, well, there's limitations to our website, there's a reason. It's
I know, it's pretty-
$120 a year, right?
But I think if people are going, and we should counter it.
It doesn't scroll, but I can put, and Jane's really good about council meeting tonight, and putting, that's.
Yeah, so I think we should look where we can capitalize on the website. The other thing is, we need to have real time, this is nearly as possible, real time communication, because you know how this stuff spreads, it spreads like wildfire.
We do, you know, if there's a road closure, a tree down, a water, I mean, we're constantly pushing stuff out.
No, so those things I kind of understand, but, or do understand, but like in the context of car shows, where things were allowed to kind of ferment for a while, maybe we should be looking towards more of a rapid response. Stuff we're hearing, what we are seeing on Facebook.
Stuff to do, we can't combat what's on Facebook, we really can't.
No, but you could try and put up the general information. You know,
The bottom line was about public safety and people drawing lines and I'm glad we were able to work it out.
Yeah. The message is we should need to be responsive, should be responsible.
All right, so here's my takeaways I got from this, having Josh. We're done.
No, it's in.
Just an communication.
Yeah, it's just, you're next, Mark.
Okay. This is just this topic, Mark. Okay, have Josh read the agendas, watch for relevant topics. Watch the staff reports, in particular at the end of the meeting. Bring Josh to a work study to form a marketing strategy. And mine, we can talk about this when Josh comes over to looking to mine themes on Facebook and try to be somewhat, I guess, we're gonna be reactive. I mean, that's, you're seeing it there. And I, there's,
If he's good at his job, he knows where he can get the best bang for his buck.
he's good at
But it will be a
it.
process.
Yeah.
All right, Mark,
You didn't want us to go clockwise.
where's the counter? Hopefully,
So I just want to take a quick poll. How many here at one point, priority wise, had communication on that list?
What's that sort?
So majority,
Oh, yeah.
majority of us had communication on that list. Communication to me is a big umbrella. We've had discussion from Jay about outward positive communication. I think that's wonderful. We had some more output from John over there about, how we can improve our processes. So that we can, which would include communication on an outward level from our staff. And I'm hoping I'm not going to get staff off this up tonight, but we have a staff problem in communication in general, starting going all the way through the city with an element that says, we're not welcoming you. And I see it, I hear it from DC, the code feedback, figure it out. It's not a good response. I'm not an engineer. It's not a good response. I know those people who put in a precious situation, but as a small business person who deals in customer service, separating myself and my clients from, and my employees from the other big guys, I think have a business. We can't run our city this way. I really love the idea of bringing someone in, consultant in. I know that costs money, but have them look through our processes and help us in communication, but also in the processes, so that perhaps we can save some time, so we can have more time to communicate with our small businesses that are looking to upgrade and improve their buildings, to bring more revenue into the city, with our developers, both small and large, who pay everybody's salaries. We have to have a more welcoming approach to how we deal with these folks. We can't please everybody, but from what I've seen in the last couple of years, and actually more recently in the last 8 or 9 months, from what I'm hearing, I'm not pleased with very many. KBA, they're not very appreciative of how our PCD works. John and I were over there recently for a firing squad meeting. We heard the same thing we did 4 years ago, or 4 years ago when I was there running for council. We've got to make some process improvements, some changes there in our attitudes. When we're dealing with third-party consultants, we know we're doing it to help increase the volume of permits that we're running through. But those businesses that are being handled by third-party consultants, they don't have to really talk. Because those consultants aren't talking to them directly, and probably shouldn't. We should, the city, we should have someone overseeing those consultant communications, and that they need to work. Okay, well, it's not coming across from our constituents that that's actually happening. And you actually, you commented a little bit earlier that we're not communicating well with the permit for applicant, because we're communicating with the architect. Why can't we CC the applicant on everything we do and communicate with that third party architect or planner or engineer? The engineer is not our applicant. Our applicant was our applicant.
it depends on what they put on their application and who they want us to. And Scott, you're much more in depth in permit processes. If that's what they want and they put on their application, we're happy to do that. But that information isn't provided to us when the application is provided. How do we know who we need to communicate with.
Well, so I'm gonna, I hope I don't get myself in trouble here or anybody else, but I'm gonna use this little bit of situation down here. As a truth be told here. Cody apparently was asked to hire an architect. The
Who asked them to hire an architect?
I think the city said I needed to have.
You would need an architect to do the project.
What it's trying to do, and there's been a back and forth apparently between the, what I've been told, between the city and the architect. And Cody has not been updated or informed on that.
So is that on us or is that on his architect?
Yes, anytime we communicate with that architect, we should be CCing.
If the applicant asks for that, I'm certain we
No,
would.
it should be automatic.
Well,
So
so,
how would we know that?
The property owner.
Yeah.
It's their firm, right? It's what it is.
And if they put that.
Permits.
Correct.
It's his, he's the applicant for making the changes. All the communication should go to him and the architect sees the back and forth there, so that it's all in the loop. We have better communication amongst everybody. Everybody knows what's going on. It's a better way to do this. And I think having somebody come in, I had a program years ago called Triad, same type of thing. Where they come in and they actually do an assessment of how you're doing. It's not terribly cheap, but I think the city itself, particularly BCE and our permit processes with the volume we're working. And those guys are doing a bang job, but I think we could make them even more productive and better with our constituents. If we do something like that. That's fine.
All right, I'll do that. So, I'll start off with saying, for sure, the largest developer on this, it's not even close, is in our city. Not even close. And they're gonna be the largest developer for the next few years. Told me, I'll start off with one sugar, that they think Dave Bond is amazing. And we're fortunate to have him, amazing. But the city of Port Orchard out of 8 developers that he has, national developers, 6 of the 8 said the worst city that they've ever worked with. From tone to communication to a lot of it. You can bring in consultants, but consultants aren't gonna teach you tone. I'm a code enforcer for a living for a long time. Like, how you word things, how you say things matters. You can definitely, I give what it's called minimal technical advice. I walk them through some. They can get their research, here you go, choose what route you want to go with, whatever. When there's a code violation, I show them the code violations. I do not say figure it out,
and I think
which was said.
that's critical in communication, is showing the code section.
So, I literally read it to them. And then provide, here you go, you know, whatnot. So there's no misinterpretation. You can bring in consultants, but consultants cannot teach you. I don't want to say the word famous, because the professionals say that, but tone and how it's approached. And that's what our businesses are extremely frustrated with is tone.
I hear you, and Nick has been talking to his staff about these very issues, approaching on that work. And I can assure you of that, and like I said, Nick and I just talked about many of these issues today.
Thanks for rock stars. I wanted to start off by saying, you know,
I think we have a whole team of rock stars, but many of them are working very, very, very hard. And you know, but how we communicate information needs to be improved on.
Well, there's also-
There's
also this, I don't even know, the house that the city is trying to add to the Washington State Code. We're trying to put our own level of code in there, and that's not.
It's the other way around.
Yeah,
That's the case at all, but you hear a lot of that. Well, the city's trying to make me do this, we're just trying to make you do what the science state code.
Building fire code, ADA compliance, I mean.
But I agree with you 100%, because I've, in the last, 5 months, for, small businesses that had a really hard time. And so, and I'm glad we're addressing this, we're gonna be more business friendly, we're gonna have better communication.
We're still gonna be in code, correct? So let me go back to something you said, Mayor, not pointing at you, but we have this, and you brought this up, so hang on, I'll try to bring it back around. We've, at being as the city and under growth management, we're gonna see continued growth right now, and we are, and I agree, I mean, the plan.
I think it's water rights. We're working.
And, but I'm saying is, part of what you said a couple minutes ago, probably an hour, was we have these consultants, because we don't want to hire bodies, because we don't want to lay bodies off. Of all the places we see, and forget for a minute, can you find qualified people, that's different. But we're gonna see this growth, and I agree, for the next 5 to 10 years. Why don't we really, while we're looking at our, drilling down the BCD, look at what the right size is? Because they're paying for it and we're paying consultants for it. So we gotta bring staff on board. God knows we have enough turnover as it goes through. And we have said before, or at least I have, that I'll fully support hiring that you recommend, knowing that at some point in time we may have to lay off. But that's also true in any life things. And it sounds like we gotta take a look at right staffing for this department. And
I'm not even fully staffed over there right now.
I know that.
I got more. Yeah, I got more openings than,
Well, I'm just saying,
I'm not fully staffed. That's a piece of it.
Piggyback on that one too, because that's one thing I've heard since coming on board. Well, this room, well, for this owners. I'm with Jay. Don't believe it's ever going to burst in the city of Rowan. In my-
it's gonna have foreseeable future.
In my, right, and I go, you guys are here, like, I moved and benefited off of that last time. When I bought my house in 2013, they got a great deal on the house. It was also built in an area that everyone else built, but I bought one that was already built, just that, right? But I don't believe with the growth that's going on in whether it's military base, whether it's Puget Sound, whether it's Kitsap County, all of those just add to Port Orchard, because I've said it multiple times. What's happening in Cape Harbor is coming our way because it's just going to keep pushing further and further out.
It's here.
It's here, it's not going anywhere. So I'm with you. I think I would not be afraid, especially here, $500,000 in the biennium, to me, that's at least 4 full-time bodies, right? All said and done. Depending on the skill levels.
For sure. I hear you. We have, once I put money into people, I don't have any money to do things. And we've got a lot of things that we've got to pay for.
And so I'm not advocating to take away from that, but I'm saying if we're budgeting for this consultant contract, let's think and look and have, maybe we need a process that we look at, maybe that's a finance thing to say, all right, what does that look like? And cost benefit analysis, bringing it in-house, right? What pull all our consulting contracts. Some of them aren't going to be anything we bring out, but I think there is that opportunity, so I will take that.
And Mark, to your point over there, I'll make sure that applicants are being included in that process.
It's simple, it doesn't cost me.
All right, if we're gonna go much farther, I need these rest.
Listen, say make smart gov available so they can check the box and when they want to be included in all communities. Sometimes we've had applicants that they don't want to be any part of it, and that's fine. We've also had the same situation where that's an opportunity to be taken advantage of by the consultant or the contractor, and so it's best to include them, even if they don't want to. so that they know what's going on.
More staff have access to it, more licensing staff have you.
No, the applicant or the owner, or the owner's rep.
So it sounds like it was a box that the applicant could not.
You can inform.
Yeah.
Yeah, say,
Get all emails.
some landowners don't want anything to do with it, just like it.
That's what you're saying, then, so like, yeah, cause like you're talking about like.
Yeah.
Like our licenses are different than. Like.
I don't know, I don't know how you use yours, but we use ours normally.
So,
Yeah.
so
It's DCD.
can I ask the follow-up question here? So if I'm an applicant. I have to check a block and I hire an engineer. And I have to check a box. To let you know that I want to be updated on all the things you're talking about.
These operational practices, there's a box for the landowner. And there's a box for the landowner's representative. And the landowner's representative represents them in all matters.
Gotcha.
So and that's where the landowner has opted out of that process of notification. Now, when we see that something's getting a little pain,
Yeah.
we'll have.
That's right.
There's.
Just for the benefit of the council, we've been here 2 hours. Yeah, almost two. Yeah, almost two. Well, yeah, that's. That's wrong. No, yeah, that doesn't bother me. What I was gonna suggest was, much like the NFL draft, people on the clock have like 20 minutes for the first, and then you get to the second round, you got 10 minutes. So I'm not against going around the room again, sure, but just that we keep things a little bit more focused. We did a couple rounds here. I got to make it up.
But I
List.
Yeah, but I got with Eric and he said it got to him, because I heard people were afraid to even. Address the issue, because they're afraid of fear recognition, they're afraid that they will be accosted with worse conditions. Because you don't find that. Yeah, that's not, about the permit house?
Yes,
Just talk
they don't
about.
want to
That's
complain.
that's nonsense. That's
I
absolutely
think
nonsense.
people have a sense of the fear of recognition.
Yes,
It should not be that way, they should know it's
Yes.
completely professional, but they have the fear that if they complain.
That's-
Angela will come back to something worse.
I've heard that from a couple business people.
We said we go
Yes.
from the room to a quicker, most likely that felt draft.
Okay,
And so, you're going fast.
Well, I mean, so I want to, so I'm just, my big lazy, I'm gonna take this next one, because it's not gonna be anything you're gonna. take me down to. I would just like, I have an aspirational someday for our parks. To have programming.
Programming in the parks.
it's a part of Parks and Rec.
I wanna get there.
It's a vote of the people, and I'd love to have it too, but
What does that mean?
Where I come from, you can go to Sundance, it's a program they have in the parks, you go to your local park, wherever you live closest to, they have. High school / college age kids that are paid in parks employees that have programming all day for me to go hang out.
It's running a park.
I can go back home because generally there's always a park that you can walk,
Yeah.
or ride your bike close enough to,
it's a ballot measure for the Parks and Rec division within the city.
Divisions and for district.
Or district, it's a tax.
it's work closely with the local school districts, but again,
So when, I mean, that's fine with me. I'll pass it on. So my question is, and we know what it's about, when are we looking at?
Okay, so we talked about this.
Yes.
And we did, seemed like yesterday, but it was probably 6 or 8 years ago. We did it, cause that was right when we were in the heat of the Veterans Park mess. The county solution was City of Port Orchard, you can have this park. And we talked about it, okay, but that park is bigger than all the rest of our parks combined, and it needs a whole bunch of money put into it. And it need to be managed, and we should have kids and soccer teams and everything playing on that. So I started to champion that, and so we called a timeout and we did a community survey. We had 5 topics, and I'll miss 1 or 2 of them, but what are your talk, what are your priorities? Because we were talking about running a levy. And the community told us crime, so we doubled down on hiring police officers. Traffic, in particular on Bethel, so we went and did the councilmatic 110, and we know that, we don't know. Likely, we're gonna need some additional money for the funding gap for that. We knew going into it, we were a couple million short. If it's only a couple million, we can probably get a grant, but if it's more than a couple million, we're probably going to the voters for the other 1/10. We can get to 2/10, but it takes a vote of the people. So the council at that time said, we shouldn't go to the voters because we might have to go to the voters to fix this transportation process. I can't remember what the other two were, but number 5 was parks.
And then the first priority of parks was the brick and mortar building for after school programs. Because school were taking.
I don't know if that was part of our survey, but
Yeah.
Everything was in the survey, and something was gonna win, and something's gonna lose.
yeah. So top 2 were, we need to address crime, and hire police officers. We need to- Just when Veterans Park was blowing up, I want to say it was. Yeah, 3 to 4 years ago. 4 years. No, I was more than that. I think times.
No, I,
Whenever Veterans Park.
it was during the time when I was.
So anyway, I fully support that idea, but I think we've got some other priorities that we like solving at least phase 1 of that vote, because we might need to go to the voters to get 1/10 more. And I think we can only go to the voters so many times.
At what point do we think the city's going to be ready to know that?
So the next, we'll have the design done late this year. I mean, so we'll have our engineers, so this is a conversation we could have. I don't know about a mid-year review, but maybe
When we do
the next budget to talk about if the timing's right.
Because that's gonna take time too, right? To
Yeah.
ramp that up and get us.
Because we gotta come up with if we're gonna go to the voters, we gotta plan.
It is, that's what I'm saying.
So this is what you're gonna get for your tax dollars. We're gonna do this with your parks. We're gonna hire people, we're gonna do programs, and this is what you're gonna get for your tax dollars.
So, and I had this on my list too, but what I added to my list was, this should all be done within the constraints of what the comp plan is telling us we should do. And right now, with the bills, we should do that. And so I think we need to look at that chapter and see if it needs to be revisited. And perhaps tone down a bit.
I think we're within a couple of years of doing, every 5 or 6 years, we have to update the park plan, and it's probably 4 years old now. So that's gonna happen organically, because it has to, otherwise we're not eligible for grants.
Yeah, I guess the takeaway is the comp plan, Parks and Rec chapter is telling us to do something now.
Yeah.
We don't have the resources to do it. So if we're gonna change what that looks like, we need to change the comp plan.
So Mayor, if it's possible, can we find out when that survey was done? Because I agree with you, I think it was a while ago.
I think it was 5 or 6.
Yeah, and I remember it, but my point of it is to find out what the results were, and maybe it's time to have another survey, because
The problem is, we've got, before we start any more initiatives, we've got some big things we've got to deliver on.
Why do you have the survey if you did the first one?
well, the reason I say that is things have changed over the last 6 years, 5 or 6 years. Now, if it was 3 years ago, I'm going, that's close enough.
It's
But if it's 5 or 6 years ago, we've gone through COVID. We've gone through, stops and start, and the city's changed also. We've had tremendous growth in west of 16, and it's changing our dynamics in how, in the city and the focus on the city. I mean, we've seen that in our meetings, the coffee up at the, with the, HOA. And I'm just saying is, okay.
I think we need to do another survey, but I don't think it's today. I think it's when we go to content now. to rate them 1 through 5. What's your highest priority? Yeah, okay, so
Alright, might just real quick, yeah, so, when we have a work study. And on our published agenda. If somebody's name or business is mentioned on a published agenda. I think they should have 5 minutes to address the work study. Change the policy that we can't do that. And if it's this, a group, it's a car club, they get a representative that can address the car club. But I just don't think it's appropriate for us to hold a discussion without hearing their side of it. So if their name or business is on the agenda, published agenda, they should get 5 minutes to address.
So when we create agenda, if there's somebody involved in it, we're not probably putting the dais. I mean, we're putting them at the table with this. I think what happened there is Scott, staff wasn't ready. We weren't at all prepared to talk about it.
It was a one-off.
Well, I think they were showing up no matter what.
Yeah, I know it's one-off. But I would like to, make it super simple to change that. We give 5 minutes to speak if we don't allow that and, Jay addressed that and that's it. Sure. Let's take to it.
We're gonna want, if somebody's on the agenda, they're likely sitting here at the table with us. Yeah, because we're having a conversation, you know, you're not, now you're whatever that entity is. We're talking about you or to you because we're working through a process. So I just don't see that being an issue at all, because you're gonna be at the table with us. But yeah.
That was about public comment. Having public comment.
That's good. That's kind of.
Yes.
We shouldn't have been there as well.
Yeah, so, and it was fine, it worked out, but Jimmy didn't have all the information going in either. So that was the one, and I've seen this before, we've had work study, people have been on there and they've been at the table. Mine was about not having a public comment period before it, that's why.
Okay, so you think it's a non-factor?
I think it's not a factor.
Okay.
Yeah, they're on the agenda to be here at the table.
Sounds
I'm
good.
good with that.
For their stuff, you know, we see if the county's got some program and they're giving us a presentation or what, it happens throughout, you know, a few times a year.
Right.
With somebody's.
No worries about it. It's a, yeah, this, I don't know, the whole history, so it sounds great. No.
Can it be on like at the last minute or can it be on, I don't know.
Don't
Monday?
There's a process we go through for creating agendas, and it involves the directors. We have the Wednesday after the council meeting is when we have our directors and managers meeting to look at work plan and set the agenda for we typically looking about 2 months out. Looking at the work studies, looking at the business meetings, because there's a lot of work that goes into putting those packets together and making sure we have all the information and it's ready to go. And so things aren't just thrown in there on the fly. I mean, there's a process for you guys if there's something emergent. It's, you know, when I asked at the beginning of the meeting, okay, we've got a published agenda tonight. Are there any modifications to the agenda tonight? Sometimes it's pulling something off of the consent agenda. Sometimes it's, hey, I want to add a discussion item. There's a process to modify the agenda. And
I
so.
don't think we're at this.
No, yeah.
Yeah,
We don't.
But a work study, but a work study, you could say maybe on after our city council has, oh, I want to do this because it is our meeting. We're allowed to, you know. then that
we you know, there's a process at this meeting to any of these meetings, but you gotta remember. If we're not prepared to talk about it, it's not gonna, you know, if I don't have information prepared, it's not gonna be.
It's just like, oh, let's get it out there. I wanna, you know, discuss it with you guys, and maybe that in the future, we can, you know, bring that up.
That's what they're the orders for.
Okay. Oh, hey.
About that was.
Um,
No, yeah, okay.
No.
Okay.
Oh, I would really like, that we have on our Zoom, you know, a nonpartisan background that represents all of the city council members. that we're all unified and together. It's like we are here in, the dais. I think our, Zoom meeting should be, reflected for how we are. And go out and bring all that we can go forward with that.
I thought we had a path forward on that at some point.
Well, we had talked about whether we want to change our norms, have all of our norms reviewed. And as the mayor pointed out, anything we do require staff time, which would be Charles' time. On that, which is not cheap. So it's a question of whether we want to piecemeal them. Or whether we want to take a full look at it on that, I still wrote it that one page. And the page that said, I remember that, but so that's kind of the question.
It's like you stated, we don't want to do, New Hartford that has 24 pages.
37 actually.
37.
Yeah, you burned it out.
We don't need that, but something more.
So we're up.
We're getting off topic, so is there
And it should,
is there a desire from the majority of the council to require I guess, a city created background? I think that's what I use.
I don't think it needs to be, it needs to be city created. I just think. I mean, if we have a next election, the council members come in and they could have. Any other words, on there that we don't agree with. And we have our meetings and work we do agree with, doesn't matter if we do agree. Maybe the public doesn't, and it is on council time. Now you are on the clock.
But it's not political. And that's been, that was Charlie.
right,
Charlie was asked whether that was a political sign or not.
but it be a social sign.
And I have my social beliefs.
But you don't have those on city time as a display, you wouldn't put that, you wouldn't demonstrate that on at the dais, you wouldn't hold that at the dais.
If I wore it on my shirt because we don't have a dress code, is that next?
But your HOA doesn't even allow you to do that on.
So, actually, actually does allow us to do that.
I'll
Put it in my rule.
I'll actually give it a comes down, so the other day, we were having we set up here for the people who might want to run for city council or for, but for school board or whatever.
Yeah, elected officials.
Perfect.
Right.
If it's a nonpartisan position, you can't wear any words on your shirt, you can't even wear a pen on your shirt, in your photos, or on a video that you do. If that's the case when you run, why would we have the opposite when you're actually in the position?
His still draft that he's using though, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, the attorney has ruled that is not a political statement.
Oh, no, I don't believe it's a political statement.
Okay,
I don't believe it's a political statement. I believe it's a social statement.
Yes.
Yes.
So yes, just the bottom line, the attorney has ruled that Jay is doing nothing wrong.
Oh, no, and so my thing is, whatever we go with, but I think in the future, we could get something completely the opposite. Let's say Heidi wants to have something that is, let's say, so far out there that we question, but it's not political, it's social. Are we going to
she's
say,
entitled to do that.
Are we for a solution, for a problem that doesn't exist?
Yes, as a council body,
no worries at all?
as a
I
council
was
body,
saying
it's
the
up
other
to
side.
us to police our own, I would say. It's up to us as a group to police our own. We had a discussion.
No.
We talked about it, we had the attorney weigh in on this, there's nothing to police.
No, but it's always was tabled. I just think we should have something that unifies, that's all.
Yep.
No, I actually,
Tabled it.
So,
I tabled it for the first quarter.
well, you're talking about.
Oh, we compounded that, we compounded this discussion with, a topic that Jay wanted to have that we postponed it.
Right.
And so I said, why don't we just do that all at one time, and we said the first quarter, so we can end that and move on.
So the question is that council, I guess, rules, is that
No,
It's something you guys want to spend attorney resources on.
If
We
we-
can't do that much, it's just like, hey, we're gonna go for non-partisan.
It'll be a couple $1,000 minimum.
Or
For attorney
consent,
times?
or consent.
Well, you're not, there's more, okay, we're talking about.
And Frank, because if I recall, again, I don't have an iron track up here, but if I recall right, we said that we would look at all of it together and create council rules as a whole.
Correct.
And we did, we tabled it, said we'd like to relook at that in the first quarter. And now, from what I'm hearing, the mayor's asking, do we want to say that that's a priority and expend resources to create those council rules?
Oh, I
That's-
thought he dropped his, which I know.
Right.
You still, did go to
Let's
consent.
stay, I've got a question here. We do, because we're running out of time. Well, so do we want to spend resources to address?
a problem.
That's for you, yeah, that's for you to call, we will spend the resources if that's the direction you're giving us.
It's not that.
I would actually offer that, I would say no to that, I would entertain a voluntary agreement by individuals to have like a city of Port Arthur type neutral background. I would voluntarily for myself if such exists, not 100%, you do that, 100%, I like yours. So we could do it now, and if someone's
You
one,
know, you know, mine is,
suppose
I
that.
took a picture of the Tremont roundabout.
One was the flag, I thought it was a converted flag.
No, it isn't. I just took a picture, anybody can take a picture.
That's the better version on.
Yeah, so I'm not hearing anybody other than anyone.
I think you're doing pretty well. So
I just, it's not been an
It's
issue.
not, it's not an issue. I
It's
really-
not been presented as a problem here in the town.
Have you got control of council rules? We have a set of rules already.
We said we were gonna go to that.
I don't necessarily agree with the rule either, but I was saying, you know, as far as if we're gonna package it together, let's just do.
Well, more than that. I don't think we should have it here, I think we should do it every non-partisan. Simple.
I'm not hearing support for this, so Brett.
Yeah, very quickly, I just wondered, what is the Kids Up Bank lease agreement, do they get to rent the current bank for as long as they want?
No, there's,
What, great.
yeah, there's a. I can't speak to it off, but there is a term, there's an end to it. And they just, it was this year, exercised the first option.
To the
To
Senate.
extend it, yeah, and there's more options to extend it, so they've got to,
They lose their vesting here shortly.
they're, next year. Next year, see, at the end of the year, they've got to get going. Their shoreline permit is married to ours. In process, and so we'll see some movement late this year, I believe. They're, you know, COVID just changed the workplace and whether, I think they're gonna have a building there, they're committed to their headquarters there. Whether they're in all of it or somebody, you know, what's inside that box could look different than what was initially envisioned when they thought they needed a three-story building to house all of their operations and.
I'm hopeful that they keep the public space and the glass.
Yeah.
So the answer is they have another 3 years before they.
Off the top of my head, I don't know how many more years, but there's additional extensions to that, and they're paying us.
Well, yeah, we can't do anything until they would out.
Correct. Well, and we're not ready, we can't do anything until we build a road. Yeah, we're not ready. There's a,
We'll see the flower for Friday. Keep paying that bill.
okay, so we got 15 minutes more unless.
Let's see here. The noise downtown. I guess this is just what I'll ask straight out is, what is the Port Run role and how can you address it right now?
It's their property, they've done speed bumps and other things to make it less desirable, to speed through there.
At what point do they own some of the responsibility for the activities that are occurring on the property?
I don't know if there's any crime being committed on the property, what, it's a nuisance.
It's a nuisance. So they could address that as a property owner, they could address that. And I'm just curious if we.
They're aware that we have. Of the activity, we made improvements to the property to try to address some of that.
They put in a couple of speed bumps, that does nothing to the revenue.
Are you still getting a bunch of people complaining regularly? I have not had an email or.
They're still extremely nice.
Yes. So we heard more about that.
Because I will say, there was a time very recently, I left here on a Tuesday night. To lo and behold, what was going on down in the port parking lot. But lights are going on, Berkshire Police was down on the lot approximately this time of night. Taking care of business.
Yeah, people need to call 911. We will respond,
Right,
okay?
well, we may respond.
Well, we
Yeah,
will.
not every time,
Right, well, we will eventually respond, it's just whether or not, what other priority calls are ahead of that.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah, so,
I would say that people are probably not responding or calling about them because they weren't seeing
Correct.
actions, results.
They get frustrated.
Given up.
And cheer them on, keep doing it, right, because it's just like that neighbor with the dog that barks, of course, they're gonna bring the dog in, when somebody comes to check in on it, right? But same deal, I'm just gonna keep at it, I think we're early, right? I watched some of that activity myself, I go
Based on
down.
the people I talked to on Saturday.
Scott, it's not unique to there, it's everywhere in the city, it's in front of my
That's
house.
what I said to him, I said, I can hear it when I'm going.
Yeah.
People were just,
They're just vocal about it. I'm not sure there's much more other than reporting it to 911.
Well, just would be nice if the landowner were a little more.
They then get their chief crown and told them and then it's.
I think so. Chief reported about that.
Maybe they said, what was the footage report?
Well, so, first of all, we had to have permission, right, just like.
So we had an agreement.
An agreement that was put in place, and so, and I think that was shortly after we put in the speed bumps. Some signs, or they changed some, I don't remember.
They put some signs up too.
But they did give us.
Which would enable our police department to enforce.
Investigation as it came.
Yeah.
Alright, well, let's see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jay, anything else?
I would see my time, I would like to thank the council tonight because we're pretty much in consensus. About some things to move forward, so greatly appreciated. The comments and discussions and, certainly Mary should not feel like it's an attack on staff, it's how we get staff better. So, don't let the people feel defensive, because we're here to support you. Okay.
And I regret that I
It's wasn't.
Mark?
Part of my next one, we are going to get that, so.
We get a 3 out of 4.
Anything else? Could we go to the good of the order?
Nice. So, the county has published a list of priorities this year and next year and by district as well. One of those, and I think I sent you an email about this, included discussion of a sorry, 2026, discussion of a YMCA in Port Orchard.
I mean, right, put that on my list. Okay, here's the backstory. Bottom line is Commissioner Burrito killed, but so.
A long time ago.
Yes, so yes, you're right. So here's what happened. Okay, just before, when I was on the council, just before you got on the city council, we funded a survey, we jointly funded a survey in Kitsap County. I wanna say it was $60,000 or $70,000, we paid for this survey that we split with Kitsap County, it's been 11 years.
Involved.
Maybe they might have kicked a couple dollars into it. And so we got this, and I have the report still. Let me make a note and I will email. You guys want the report?
Yes,
sure.
It's dated, it's 10 years old.
You know, I'm serious there.
Well, yeah, I'll get there. So the report says there's a need, there's demand. And so we get this report and Chief Wright, who was the fire chief at that time, and we're gonna champion this thing, you know, because we have to raise 50%. That's so 50% of the cost, the other 50% is paid for the Y issues debt, and for the dues paid for the other half of it. So we're ready to go. Charlotte is not on board with it, but Chief Wright and I. So we approached the Y, and the Y said, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. Even though they funded Silverdale, Gig Harbor, and one in Pierce County in the last 5 years prior to the survey with that model. And they said, you guys have to raise 100%. And my comment was, we raise 100%, it's not a YMCA, it's our thing. Yeah, that's right. And so there's demand, there's a need, but the YMCA has changed their model, at least at that moment in time.
So is that just a legacy comment then? How did that land on their list? They just kicked out 2 weeks ago.
So I believe so they're doing these things, so Bremerton's done one too, right, where they've now put a spot in the new Marina Square.
Okay.
Right, so I believe that they were, last I had heard, I don't know this to be bad, this is 7:30 minutes. Is that they were gonna look at doing something small here that's kind of a test market to see if it's viable. I heard that before, Planet Fitness over there.
It's like 600 square feet.
So I don't, yeah, are they still doing it? Is that going?
Race first.
Oh, yeah, we're now, so I heard they were gonna do one here in South Kitsap somewhere too, but that was,
600 square.
oh, it's itty.
The key part and.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was going
So a
to,
few of these things, I heard they were gonna do one here in South Kitsap. Correct, that's probably the right term for it, but before Planet Fitness opening. So I don't know if that has been, yeah, this is 30 and don't
The
take it.
perfect site for it is Gibbons.
Yeah.
Tear it down and.
that.
You turn out-
So they are trying to do, one is the, community and, action, and they're a nonprofit.
So
And so we actually, so they meet at 9 o'clock every, on the third Wednesday, or no, the second Wednesday, over at Montgomery. And I was at that meeting, and they had the YMCA guy come and talk to us, and it's not 100%, the city does have to bring some of the people, and then they still come on board, but they're kind of flying a brick and mortar where this can go.
I want to give them the school pool and they can build their.
Oh, right
next to the, right in the parking.
Charlotte, it was, turf for Jim. For the, don't remember the name of their conglomeration, I think it's Kitsap and, Pierce. South, Puget Sound. But they're a different group than the Seattle group, they're a really great guy. I was contact information.
Well, frankly, if we don't know much about it, then I'm not concerned about it, but.
Did you all get Brandy here, last week?
And
I was
Oh,
here.
good in the order, before I interrupt.
that was your guys' good work. I'm not about ready to adjourn this meeting.
you get
Okay, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Jean.
You're welcome.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, Brandy. Thanks, Janine.
Thank you.